Hey guys, so we're now going to take a look at the deck profile of the Synchro Spam deck that we're going to be using as our starting point for our casual to competitive series. So let's just jump straight into it. So we're going to start off with the Pendulum engine, or the Pendulum core part of the deck, which we start off with a single Supreme King Gate 0. It's a scale 0, what else needs to be said, and is searchable off of the 3 copies of our Supreme King Dragon Darkworm, which is also just really good for when it's sent to the graveyard. It's an immediate special summon on a level 4, which is great. We've then got the Symphonic, so we've got 1 Symphonic Warrior Mics, which is searchable, as you saw in the showcase, off of our Symphonic Warrior's guitar. Literally just pitch a card from the hand and you get instant mics, which is a great level 5. We then have the 3 Pendulum Mucho, the source of my bricks for those last couple of hands. Useful as a level 1, but also useful as a scale 0 if we don't draw into King Gate 0. So that does it for the Pendulum engine. We're now going to move on to the Synchron part of the engine. So obviously starting off with our 3 copies of Junk Synchron. It's a normal summon and special summoning a level 2 or lower monster from the graveyard. What more needs to be said. 3 copies of a Junk Converter, great as a searcher for any Synchrons we need. 2 copies of Satellite Synchron, could be special summoned from the hand if a monster is summoned from the graveyard, and can also be used as a level 4 monster if it's on the field at the same time as a Synchro monster that has Warrior Synchron or Stardust in it. So really useful. We've got 1 Cyber Synchron, 3 copies of Performapal Odd Eye Synchron, which I don't really count as being in the Pendulum core despite it being a pendulum, just because it is a very useful level 2 regardless. And then we've got 1 Synchron Carrier, which allows for an extra normal summon and allows for a token. Synchron Explorer, to revive back any of the Synchron Tuner monsters we have. And that's it for the Synchron package. And we then move on to the other cards that we have in the deck acting as engine pieces. So we've got 2 copies of Despot 001 and 2 copies of Despot 003. 003 gets normal summoned and special summon 001, which based on our current build would be just an instant herald. So it works well. Then we've got 3 copies of Doppel Warrior. Monster gets rezzed from the graveyard. We can instantly special summon that from hand. And then we've got Tea.C.G Warwolf, probably a bit of an odd choice, but if a level 4 or lower monster gets special summoned, we can instantly summon the Warwolf from hand. So it's all about that spamming impact when it comes down to it with this deck. So, and as I said in the showcase, a lot of these pieces should work together on paper, but when it just comes to it, it can lead to some bricky hands. But now that we've done the monsters of the main deck, we're going to move on to the spells. So we've got the 1 Synchro Chase. We've got 1 Pot of Avarice just to act as our graveyard recursion to shuffle cards back into the deck. Got our Monster Reborn. Basically the same thing. Rhoda. We've got our Foolish Burial to get our Darkworm into the graveyard easily. And then we've got the 3 copies of Tuning, which do allow 1 to get something in the graveyard. Never know what it is though, so it's always a chance that it's not good, but does allow us to get Junk Synchron easily to our hand. And that's it for the spells. We don't run any traps in this deck because realistically we don't really need them, but that does close it out for the main deck. So we're now going to move on to the extra deck. So we start off our extra deck with the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Big boss monster, acts as a gate, what more needs to be said. We've got Junk Speeder, which is the starting point synchro for a lot of our combos. The issue obviously is that if that effect gets negated, we're in a bit of trouble. We then got the level 3 Martial Metal Marcher, really good card. Our Axel Synchron, Tea.C.G Hyper Librarian, Herald of the Arclight, Crystron Quarion Gandrax, an interesting level 9 that does require 2 tuners, but it does banish when it comes onto the field equal to the number of non-tuner materials that were summoned for it. So it is quite useful. And then we've got Cypherine Milord Omega. I feel like that gets played enough where it doesn't really need an introduction. Satellite Warrior. Biggest boss monster in the deck that we've got. Depending on the amount of Synchro monsters that we've got in the graveyard, gives him a number of targets to destroy on the field, so he's really useful. Shen, used him a bit less frequently, but still an interesting card. Basically banishes anything that would go from field to graveyard. We've got our Cosmic Blazar Dragon. Gotta always go for the classic. We've got our Stardust Charge Warrior. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to shift these cards up a bit. So at the very least, you can see the entirety of the card. There we go. Stardust Charge Warrior. Our Crystron Quandax, sorry. Clearwing Fast Dragon, and our Celestial Double Shaman. Double Shaman's always just useful to get out to as many non-tuner monsters that are level 2 or lower as soon as it's summoned, so that allows us to just go into quicker plays as well. So there's a good mix of Synchro tuners and just standard Synchro monsters. I think we've got a decent mix of kind of bigger boss monsters and pieces to get up there, but I do think there are some potentially better choices here, as I indicated in the showcase. So I'm excited to see where we get to with this in the future. But that does it for the extra deck, guys, and to be honest, that closes out the whole deck profile. So overall, I think there's pieces in here that should work, but based on how much history I kind of have with this deck, and it's been through several incarnations since I originally designed it. I can't even remember what incarnation this is, but I'm really excited to see where this goes in terms of the series development. I hope I can make it as good as I want it to be. So with that, we'll close out and leave it there. In the meantime, hope you're all doing well, and I will see you soon.